Welcome to Unit 5 of the Introduction to American Law. Unit 5 is all about property law. So let's open up by talking about what exactly is property law. Property law considers two main things. The first is, what can people own? Can people own entire planets? Can people own the ocean? Can people own other people? Can they own buildings, things, food? What can people own? And secondly, in what ways can people own things? Can two people own the same thing? Can one person own all of everything? How does that work? So let's first talk about the different types of ownership. Absolute ownership is one concept of how one person can own things that doesn't necessarily work in property law. Absolute ownership is the idea that you have total and complete dominion over a thing. What that means is, if you have absolute ownership over your property, then you can prevent anybody from using your property, walking on it, doing anything with it. So, for instance, if you had a fire on your house and you had absolute ownership over your property, the fire department could not put out the fire on your house without your permission. This is why the concept of absolute ownership does not work, because in order to protect the safety of the surrounding houses, the fire department would go onto your property and put out that fire. So it's easier to understand property in this way of a bundle of rights. What this means is, if ownership over something is a pile of sticks, then the person who owns something, who is considered the owner of something, either has the most sticks or the biggest sticks. And what these sticks are is different property different rights and abilities to use property in the way that they choose. So if we look at some of these rights, this becomes more clear to understand. The first one is the liberty to use. What this means is, if you have the liberty to use an object, that means that you can literally use the object. So if I own a computer, then I can type on my computer and look things up on my computer, connect it to the internet, or if I wanted to, I could just beat it with a stick. If that's what I wanted to do with my computer, I can use it however I want to. The second right is the right to exclude. What this means is, if I own a house, then I can prevent certain people from coming into my house. I can say, no, neighbor who I don't like, you cannot come into my house. However, as in the previous example, we can't prevent everyone from entering our house, and this is why the bundle of rights concept comes into play, because even though we may have the right to exclude certain people from entering our house, then the government, for instance, has the right to use our property as well and exclude certain people from entering our property as well. A third right to consider is the power to transfer. This concerns us handing over ownership of whatever we have to someone else. So, for instance, if I own a car, then I have the right to transfer the ownership over that car to somebody else. On the title, there is my name, which means I am the owner of said car, and I am the one who can sign it over to someone else. No one else can do that because they are not the owner of the car. The last right to consider is immunity from damage. Basically, what this means is, if you hold this stick in the bundle of rights, then if someone damages that which you own, you can get repaid for that damage. So, for instance, if someone keys your car, then you have immunity from damage because you have that property right, which means you can take that person to court and sue them for compensation for the damages they brought to your car. So this is essentially what property law is. It concerns what things people can own and in what ways people can own them. And the way that we understand this today is through this idea of the bundle of rights and the various property rights that people can have.